How's everybody doing today? My name's Vinny, and today I pose the question: has the United States strengthened the locks on immigration, or is the door as open as always? Land of the free, home of the brave, America is known worldwide as a place of opportunity and new beginnings. Ellis Island was established in 1892, and since then has permitted the immigration of over 12 million people. Ellis Island has acted as a sort of hub or a gateway to America. But my question is, has it become more difficult for people to move to America? After some interviews and a little bit of research, I did find some ways to immigrate that were proven more successful than others, one being immigrating through a parent's visa. My first interview, Rahim Rahimov, who is now a Rutgers student at age 21, he immigrated from Tajikistan at age 10 in 2010 through his mother's visa. This was granted to her after earning a scholarship to get her PhD at Rutgers. However, this has not been the easiest route for Raheem to immigrate to the US, stating, "We have been living here for almost 11 years and we have to renew our visas very often. I'm 21 now, so I have to get my own student F visa, which has hindered my ability to study during the 2020-2021 school year. The paperwork did not come in on time." This is a problem I've heard with him and a few other people who need to renew their visas extremely often, and because of the amount of people that try to immigrate through every year into the US, that a lot of things get delayed and a lot of backlogs, and sometimes necessary paperwork and important paperwork just doesn't come in on time. And unfortunately, you end up screwed in some situations, as did Rahimov when he tried to attend Rutgers this semester and next semester as well. So now he is delayed a year and will have to graduate a year later than he was on track to. Some of this difficulty has to do with President Trump's immigration policies. Nicole Nerea states, "Under Trump, naturalization is taking longer than it has in the recent past. Generally, only people who are over the age of 18 and have been a permanent resident for at least 5 years are eligible to naturalize. Once they file a naturalization application, they can expect to wait another 8.8 months on average before they become a citizen, an increase of more than 50% since before Trump took office." Now, this is just the naturalization process. That itself takes about 9 months, which was a significant increase since before Trump was president. And the process as a whole can take up to 2 years now, which has doubled the average as stated in Nicole Nerea's quote. Now, also, the Department of Justice's denaturalization section can now revoke one's citizenship. So now, even when you are a citizen, you aren't 100% completely safe. You can still have your naturalization and your citizenship revoked from you, and you can be deported from the country very easily, and this has posed a problem for a lot of people. Now, one of the easiest ways to immigrate to immigrate to the US was through work. An example of this is my interview with Didier Robles, who immigrated from Colombia in 1996. He described the process as simple. "I did not have any difficulties." Now, I believe this has a lot to do with the ease how much easier it is to immigrate through work. LitwinLaw.com lists employment right after relatives as the second best method for immigrating to the United States. Now, relatives I will get into later, but basically it is having someone who is already a US citizen and living in the US, such as a cousin or a sibling or a parent or someone like that, and you are moving in with them. And that makes it very, very easy to immigrate to the US as opposed to a lot of other methods. Now, for work, however, what makes it more difficult than moving with a relative is that there are those who need no labor certification, such as professors, religious workers, and those who do, such as advanced degree holders and skilled workers with at least 2 years experience, training, and education. So if you go through all the college process, getting all your degrees, and being able to become a professor, or you are someone who works in the church, it is a little bit easier for you to immigrate through work. However, those who do need a labor certification, such as people who have advanced degrees but are not quite at the level of being a professor, or skilled workers, you'd need a good amount of experience in the field that you're looking to apply for when you're moving to the US. You can't simply just say, "I'm moving here because I want to work here." You need to be able to prove that you are going to be helpful in your field. Next, which is probably the hardest way to immigrate to the US, is the diversity visa lottery program, which my interviewee, who asked not to be named, utilized when they immigrated through Colombia. Immigrated from Colombia through Mexico at 6 years old in 1985. Her father at the time, her father had been living in the U.S. for a while, saving up money to help her, her brother, and mother immigrate. But she described the experience as just awful. It was a terrible experience coming, she said. There were times where I could have been raped just to get here, which references the smugglers that would promise young people and very, very young children as well that they would help them immigrate to the U.S. But a lot of them would unfortunately be raped and also killed in the process. And so my unnamed interviewee had to go back to Colombia for 6 months and legally immigrate through the lottery program, which she described as extremely stressful at the time. The whole time we didn't know if we would be able to go back to the US, she said. And considering the lottery now allows only 55,000 people to immigrate, I can imagine how much she was hoping and praying that they would get through. In that case, it is luck of the draw. It is completely based on God being on your side. It is not a surefire way. It is not a slam dunk to be allowed back into the U.S. through the lottery program because, again, it's a lottery. Your number or name or whatever you want to consider it is being drawn basically out of a hat and is completely luck based. Now, probably the easiest way to immigrate to the U.S. is marrying a citizen. My fourth interview, Ulalari, immigrated from West Germany in 1956. She told me that I met an American soldier while walking my dog in the park. We dated while he was stationed in Germany. I moved to America at age 18 to marry him, and I was sponsored by the travel agency I worked for to stay in America and became a citizen in my late 20s. Now, in this case, she faced very few, if really any, difficulties with the immigration process, such as I mentioned before. This is the relatives method of immigrating to the U.S. She had someone that she knew in the U.S., someone that she would be able to move in with. In this case, it was a spouse. She went through very few challenges when it came to this, especially at the time when it was a lot more lax when it came to the immigration process. She simply signed some papers, got married, and was able to move in because she was married to a U.S. citizen. Now, much has clearly changed since then. Some things have become more restricted, some a little bit more lax, and that was where the then and now comes into play. Now, what exactly has changed? Well, then, inspectors would ask immigrants a round of questions in an interview, such as, are you married or single? What is your occupation? Have you ever been convicted of a crime? And that was their way of weeding out people that they didn't want in the country. Now, married couples especially are interviewed for their green cards, where government officers often delve into their most intimate personal details. So the immigration process, when it comes to the interviews, is a bit more invasive. They have national security at the forefront of their minds when it comes to this now. And so they are going through a lot more strenuous questioning, and there's a lot more detail that needs to be given to immigration officers in order for an immigrant to be allowed into the United States. Another thing is then immigrants were filed into the registry room, had their eyelids propped open for a 6-second check for trachoma, and followed by more tests for anyone who looked pale or tired. Now, they still take a mandatory medical examination for medical conditions such as tuberculosis. However, this examination is now done in a doctor's office. So before, a lot of people would be basically single file line at what would is essentially a stand, and they would be shortly checked for any signs of illness, anything that could be spread upon their immigration to the United States. But it was in front of a lot more people. Now it is a little bit more private. You're secluded from the rest of the people, and the medical examination is a bit less invasive. Technology has advanced, obviously, since then, so it is a bit less strenuous of a process, and is a lot more lax than before, when people were physically being poked and prodded with their medical examination. Now, Detective Alan Barbeau, he immigrated from Romania in 1996, and he had a bit more of a difficult time when it came to migrating to the U.S. He said the process of immigrating to the US proved to be more difficult due to the amount of information and time needed to complete the procedure. There is a long process with US immigration that involves multiple legal forms as well as a medical examination and multiple interviews. This is all stuff that I went over before. It is, again, it's a long process. There's a lot of things you have to go through. And one of these things is signing a document known as the Affidavit of Support. Before, you could cash in your home currency for enough US dollars to start a new life, and you were basically given a go-ahead after that. Now, immigrants are made to make a commitment to take financial responsibility for immigrant relatives. So you have to prove that you are going to be financially secure and responsible for not only yourself, but everyone that is coming here with you. There is a lot. Clearly, this is a bit more restrictive than before when you were simply just trading in your money. You now have to prove that you are going to be financially stable when you are coming to this country, and you're not going to be basically coming here to do nothing. Now, a lot of this has to do with the effects of the events of 9/11. Unfortunately, 9/11 changed immigration forever in the United States. In the decades since 9/11, as quoted by Chisi and Bergeron in 2011, immigration policy has been viewed principally through the lens of national security, a development that has given the rise to major new border security and law enforcement initiatives, heightened visa controls, and screening of international travelers and would-be immigrants. So along with visa charges and the just immigration process itself being a lot more expensive, border security is really, really tight now. It is so unbelievably difficult to immigrate over the border because of 9/11, and now there was a rise in screening, especially nationality-based, unfortunately. The Muslim community, and really anybody from the Middle East or that looked remotely similar to a member of Al Qaeda had a target on their backs. There's a lot of discrimination and just pure hatred being thrown the way of people who had nothing to do with the events, other than just simply look similar to the person who committed the crime. And now national security is the number one priority. And again, there's a rise in screening, especially nationality-based people who are, say, of the Muslim community, Middle Eastern, or really black or Hispanic, or just anything like that, are more often being pulled aside to be screened for drugs and weapons or just any sort of paraphernalia you can think of. Because of 9/11, before this wasn't really seen a lot in airports. People could really just walk through after buying their tickets, hop on a plane, and get to the destination. And this is how the members of Al Qaeda were able to hijack the planes. So, as a result of this, it is a lot more difficult it is a lot more of a hassle to get through airport security. People are scanned up and down, bags are checked, looked for, shoes are taken off, there's x-ray machines, and it's a lot more strenuous of a process and a lot more complicated of a process when it comes to just being able to take a flight to Hawaii and just have a vacation with your family. And this has a lot to do with 9/11. And unfortunately, this sort of domino affected into the immigration policy being a lot more strict and a lot less inviting and not as welcoming to America as it once was with the establishment of Ellis Island. So, in conclusion, immigrating to the U.S. has definitely become more difficult. Trump's policies, although him stating that he was favoring immigration in his re-election campaign, his policies just do not say the same. They are a lot more, again, unwelcoming to immigrants. And immigrant itself, as a term, has unfortunately gained a negative connotation because of, again, the effects of 9/11 and just politics itself being a lot more welcoming of hatred, and a lot of big-name politicians spewing hatred at their rallies or wherever speech they're given. And so now immigration is, again, more difficult on top of the effects of 9/11. There are some cases where people are able to immigrate easily regardless of when they did, such as Ula Lowry in 1956 and Didier Robles 40 years later in 1996. However, my unnamed interviewee went through a significantly more difficult process than both in 1985. So this, I feel, has a lot more to do with the method, because as time went on, it has gotten a lot more difficult, such as Raheem. Raheem always struggles with his visa, and the visa lottery itself being a huge issue. So, thank you for listening.